In episode 2, we discussed communication barriers, also called cognitive distortions and unhelpful thinking styles.
We talked about 8 of them.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, we give credit to
Dr. Aaron Beck.
Dr. Aaron Beck, right? And he is a psychiatrist. He's deceased now. However, he said that he did his studies on people with depression, and he, on one of his studies. And,
Yep. He's the guy that came up with the Beck depression scale.
Absolutely, that we still use today.
Yep.
And from his studies, this evidence-based information that he gathered, he said that many people are depressed based on what's coming from inside, what they're thinking, what they, their feelings and thoughts, all that's coming from inside, not necessarily external. So he talks about this. There's a cognitive triangle in cognitive behavioral therapy, sometimes called CBT. The way we feel shapes the way we think, which shapes the way we behave.
Correct.
So there's a little book called As a Man Thinketh, So He Is. I think about that sometimes. Because of how we feel, then we may behave in accordance to how we feel.
Yeah.
And we want to talk about that because there are things sometimes called cognitive distortions. Language matters to me, so rarely will I talk about a problem or distortion or something like that, because sometimes if you say, oh, your thoughts are distorted, somebody's naturally going to resist. So lots of times in my practice, I say, hey, resist the urge to resist. And I also will say that cognitive distortions are also called unhelpful thinking styles. Somebody may call them unhealthy. All of the terms matter. All the terms, they coincide. But let's go with the unhelpful thinking styles. There's many of them, but today we're only going to talk about 8 of them. So we were talking about cognitive behavioral therapy and those unhelpful thinking styles that can get in the way of effective communication. And when we think about communication in our healthy relationships, come on, that's at the core, effective communication.
Yeah.
Like we talked about in episode 1, with communication, we're either invalidating or validating the cognitive distortions, or let's say, I'm going to call it an unhelpful thinking style. Is the first one that we're going to talk about is magnification and minimization. In layman's terms, my mother would say, don't make a mountain out of a molehill.
Yes.
Some people will absolutely make mountains out of a molehill when it's really not that serious. And then sometimes people will minimize things that are very important. Like, some people, will complete their 4-year degree and say, yeah, I've just decided I'm not going to walk. Minimizing, that's kind of important. Like if your family, supported you through this journey, they may be really excited about, oh, wow, so-and-so's getting ready to graduate, I'm going to do this. And if you minimize it and say, yeah, well, I just decided not to do that. That is minimization. That's still very important. That's a success that you've attained. That's an accomplishment that you've attained. And then you decided, no thanks. One of the subsets of magnification is catastrophizing.
Yeah.
And that's just seeing only the worst outcome of a situation.
You know what, babe? I think you probably have an example of
Absolutely.
that.
I'm a catastrophizer. I can own that. I can own it. I shared a little bit about my background. And one of those things is my dad died as a very young soldier. And I think the story I'm telling myself is it shaped my perspective so that I don't trust that my people are going to come home every night. Therefore, I will spaz out if I'm trying to reach either one of my children and they don't text me back. So it got really bad recently.
Yeah.
Last weekend, in fact. I texted my son about 8 p.m. and my son typically responds immediately to my text, but he did not that night. And then a couple hours later, I had fallen asleep and we were awakened by a phone call from my father-in-law. And then I overheard my father-in-law say, yeah, we've been calling him and we couldn't get him on the phone. Oh, you could not tell me that my son was not kidnapped at the rest stop that he typically stops at on his way home and being sold into human trafficking.
Can I point out, he's 28. Go ahead.
He is 28. He is fully grown. And I have a tendency to absolutely go there fast, you know.
And I guess it's not all bad. I remember when we were first dating, and I would drive to Philly, and I had no sense of the danger in the city.
Oh, yeah,
You remember going out on the first date?
Yes.
I got out of the car. I never locked my doors. Why? You know. But I remember getting out of the car, and you're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I had my briefcase, my computer, everything on the seat. He was like, "You got to go back and lock the doors." Do you remember that? I was like, "Really?"
Yeah, and he thought I was catastrophizing, but really I was just I guess.
Well,
I
that's
was
what you're used to.
Absolutely.
You know, so
my bias was,
yeah, you better lock it down.
or you will get got. The next one we want to talk about, overgeneralization. Be careful to not overgeneralize, because you don't know everybody's story. I saw something on Facebook years ago, and it said, "You don't know my story. Don't judge me by the chapter you walked in on."
A lot of people overgeneralize.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got to Purdue, out in the Midwest, and I'm getting together with some of the guys in the program, and I remember one guy asking me in particular, because we were driving by a field. Now he knows I'm from North Carolina, and he's like, "Hey, Walt, what's that in the field?" You know, like I grew up on a farm or something. I'm like, man, I don't know what that is.
Right, bias.
Yeah, bias.
So if Walt got offended by that, that would have impacted their relationship. You
Right.
know? So the next one we want to talk about too is personalization, and you had a good example for that one.
Like main character syndrome. I remember early on in the relationship, we would visit your mom, and I'm not exactly an early riser. So, are we married then? Yeah, I think we were married. So I'm laying in the bed, and I'm like, wow, my wife is up, and I could hear her downstairs talking with her mom and her aunt. It's like 4:45 a.m. It's like maybe 5 a.m. I'm thinking, who gets up that early?
You're early risers.
I don't want to talk to nobody. But anyway, I hear them downstairs, and they're having a great time. There's all this laughter and just deep belly laughs. And all of a sudden in my mind, for some reason, I start thinking, are they laughing at me? Are they telling jokes, or are they talking about me? And it's so ridiculous. Now that I think back on it, it's like, wow, that's like a bias, you know, and
an unhelpful.
what were you guys laughing about here?
Who knew?
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
we talk about everything all the time, so you know.
But yeah, but the point is, it wasn't about me.
It wasn't about you,
right,
at all. Right. So another one that I'm guilty of, kind of correlates a little bit with catastrophizing, is jumping to conclusions. You do not have all the facts. You have insufficient evidence, but you jump to a conclusion about it without having the evidence. Unhelpful thinking style.
Yeah.
You had an example of that one time
Oh, I got a lot of examples.
when I was working late.
Oh, yeah. You know, because in my childhood, my mother was a high school biology teacher. She was home by 4 or 5. I think my dad would have tore down the city if my mom was not home at that time. And that may be an exaggeration. But yeah, one night you're working late with a client, and I think it's going past 7 or something. I'm thinking, what? Where's my wife at? And you know, your mind just starts to wonder, and you're thinking the worst. Like, what's going on? Is everything okay? And I do remember kind of losing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's saying it calmly. He lost his mind. He called. I said, "Hey, I told you I had a new client," and he just went,
Right.
I'm coming down. Come on
Yeah.
down here. You know, it'll be okay. It'll
Yeah,
be
that's
okay."
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I've had clients come in who have those kind of biases. Like they might say something like, "Mrs. Johnson, I'm just not good at reading." You know, and it's kind of like the next word that they say should be yet. I'm not good at reading
Language matters.
yet, or I'm not good at math. It should be yet.
Yet.
Because if you don't say that word next, it's kind of like you're demonstrating a fixed mindset, and that can be bad too.
Yes.
You know, we don't want to walk around with a fixed mindset. That
Yes.
that can cause distress.
That can cause distress. One of the subsets of jumping to conclusions, well, there's 2 of them. There's mind reading, and there's also fortune telling. So one of the things I want to say about mind reading is this. None of us can mind read.
No.
It's impossible.
Nobody can mind read.
You can't possibly know what the other person is thinking at all times, even if you've been together
Like,
for a
check this
long
out,
time.
Dan. What do I want for Christmas this year?
I have no idea.
because we can't mind read.
We can't mind
We
read.
can't mind read.
Yes.
So, yeah. And I remember early on, you would say something like, well, you should know me
Yep.
by now. You should know blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, it doesn't matter if you've been married for 11 years. You're not going to know.
Right. Let's go on to should. But should statements are a fixed mindset, right? It's a stuckness kind of thing. Sometimes it's not always projected onto others. You could keep yourself in a cage if you put shoulds and musts on yourself.
Yes.
I shoulda, woulda.
Yes.
That's not
yes.
a helpful thinking style.
No.
Okay,
no.
let's go back to fortune telling.
You want to go back to fortune? Okay.
Yeah, because you were fortune telling a little bit when we had to make that
Yeah,
move.
when we had to move to Milwaukee. I remember going online looking at different jobs, and I saw this job located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm thinking, they're not going to hire me. So I just submitted my information anyway. And lo and behold, they hire me. And they roll out the red carpet, so to speak.
Yes.
And next thing you know, we are headed to Milwaukee. And you once said you would never go.
Which is another unhelpful thinking style. That's all or nothing thinking, right? That he's going to. Because I
Right.
said, that's speaking in absolutes.
Yeah.
I never, always, those absolutes don't necessarily exist, right? There is
Right.
some gray matter, right? There's some gray matter. And sometimes I say, hey, I don't live in the gray. But not living in the gray means I want some clarity, and we need to assertively communicate so we can have clarity. But that year, well, one of the things my husband and I would do, with planning is, we would say, hey, where do you want to be? Where are we going to be in 5 years? What are we doing as we set out the new year, whatever? And I, with sass, said, all I know is I ain't never going to live no place where there's
Yeah.
a whole lot of snow.
Yeah. You used to roll your head a lot back in the day.
Yes, I did. Same year, that's the
Right.
same year. He thought he wasn't going to get the job in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. God had other plans. He got the job in Wisconsin, and by November, even though I was dragging my feet
Wow.
as long as I could,
Yeah.
the house had to sell here and everything. Our
Well,
steps
they
were
bought
ordered.
the house.
They bought the
I
house.
was there in August.
He was there in August working on the ground, sent the resume out in May. By August, he's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin working. And by November, the kids and I were there. And we lived in Wisconsin for 3 years. If you've ever been to Wisconsin, Wisconsin gets a lot of snow.
Oh, yeah. It
Be
gets a lot of
careful.
snow.
Be careful about that. Never, always.
Yeah.
Absolutes. Be careful. That's an unhelpful thinking
And this
style.
has nothing to do with anything. But I remember coming back from Christmas break. I think we had went south for the holidays. Got back. We get to the house, and I'm not kidding. There's probably 25 inches of snow.
Yes.
And I
Facts.
can't even get into the driveway.
Facts.
And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
I remember the next day, because in North Carolina, the whole city shuts down
Yes.
if there's a threat of snow. I called my boss, and I remember saying, hey, I guess we're all staying at the house today.
Based
'cause-
on his bias.
Yes, based on my bias. And it was almost like the boss, he didn't say it this way, but the boss was like, man, if you don't get into this office. And it was like, wow, the city doesn't stop.
It does not stop.
In Milwaukee, it was amazing. It could be 20 inches of snow,
Yes.
and the roads were clear.
Yes.
So yeah, bias is a thing. I mean, I was really, my feelings were hurt when he said, "Oh no, man, you got to get
You have to
in
get
the
in.
work."
3 years that we lived there, school only closed twice for the kids.
Yeah,
And that was because it was
They
just
did
too
an
cold
excellent-
for cars to
excellent
crank.
job.
The next one is emotional reasoning. What we want you to take away is, together, feelings are not facts.
They're not. Feelings are not facts.
Period.
Just because you got a feeling, that's just a feeling.
Doesn't mean it's factual.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of times, you want to suggest to people, just because you have a thought, you really need to put that thought on trial.
Yes.
Because it's not necessarily guilty. It could be innocent. It
Yes.
could be right. It could be wrong. And we need to assess the thought.
Yes. You need to challenge that thought.
Yeah, because
Right?
there could be some bias.
Yes. And the last one we want to cover today is disqualifying the positives. And I don't know, parents, sometimes I would be guilty of it. We have these genius babies. They would come home with 6 A's and 1 B, and we're sitting around the dinner table talking about the report card, and first focus is, what happened to that B? How come that B wasn't an A? absolutely disqualifying
Yeah.
the positives that your baby brought home. You
Yeah,
know,
and that can be dangerous.
that's dangerous. That's an unhelpful thinking style,
Yeah.
and it kind of, you know, it could be a part of his or her programming to be perfect, and perfectionism
Yeah.
is not healthy either.
It can cause harm. And
Yes.
and really in your relationships, you should try to catch your mate or your loved one doing something right.
Right.
It shouldn't just be about catching them doing something wrong.
Right.
You know, and that can really be negative.
Yes. If you channel gratitude versus focusing on the negative,
Mm-hmm.
disqualifying the positives in your life, then transformation will happen.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of us, we focus on the negative so much, it's almost like if your brain were a muscle, you're building that part of it up
Yes.
too much.
Yes.
And you don't want to do that.
No.
And like you said before, if you channel some gratitude, like, hey, I got sneakers, I'm healthy enough, and my
To
knees
walk.
work, I can
Right.
walk.
Right.
You don't have space left in your
You
mind
do not.
for the negativity.
You
And I love
don't.
the idea that, you know, the brain really can only do one significant thing at a time. And I know that's just a theory, but it's a good theory. So please comment below, talk to us, let us know if you have questions or concerns, and we'll try to address them. Bye.
Bye.